So you have a pile of your old clothes laying around and you've heard of this thing called Poshmark, but you don't know if it's for you. In this video, I'm going to share my experience with Poshmark as a part-time reseller, as well as pros and cons for Poshmark as an online marketplace. If you want to learn more, stay tuned.
Won't nobody love you the way they should. Won't nobody check up on you, make sure you're good. Won't nobody check those body treatments for your neck.
Hey everyone, my name is Becky Park and I am a part-time seller on the Poshmark app. And what I mean by part-time is that this is not how I make a living. I actually have a full-time job as a high school choir teacher. Poshmark is something that I do on the side as a side hustle, as a hobby that makes me money. And so I'm here to share with you what Poshmark is like for someone who's not necessarily using it to make a full-time income, but I do want you to know that that is a viable option as well. And there are people who are making probably a lot more money than me as a teacher just selling used clothing online. So the purpose for this video is just to give you some insight and hopefully answer some questions that you may have about Poshmark and whether or not this is a good fit for you. Because there are a lot of different platforms that you could use to sell your used items. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about what is Poshmark and what it isn't. I also want to point out the fact that in a couple weeks I'm going to be starting a series that I call Poshmark 101, and if you do decide at the end of this video that Poshmark is the online marketplace or the platform that you want to sell items on, then please stay tuned for those videos that will be coming up because I think that they will be really helpful and useful to you if you are a new seller on Poshmark. I think they'll be helpful for even the veteran sellers, but especially for someone just starting out. And to make sure that you don't miss out on those videos, you're going to want to make sure that you subscribe, and you may also want to press that little bell button. That's to be notified every time I upload a new video. So let's get started. What is Poshmark? Poshmark is an online marketplace where you can sell fashion items. And what I mean by fashion items are obviously clothes, but also fashion accessories. So that includes anything from jewelry to hair pins or scarves. Scarves go here. Scarves, hats. You can even sell things like bras and swimsuits. So all different kinds of fashion items, clothing items. You can also sell new with tags makeup. So you can't sell any makeup that's been used, although a lot of people try to, but you're not supposed to. But you can sell new with tags makeup that hasn't been swatched or used in any capacity. Now, if the type of stuff that you're wanting to sell are things like books or electronics or video games, those are what we call hard goods. And we call them hard goods because they are goods that are hard, right? Like they're not, like clothing is soft and whatever. Poshmark is not the place to sell hard goods. It's not allowed. Poshmark is strictly supposed to be for fashion items. Now you will see some people who are selling things like their Ray Dunn mugs or their rugs or their hair dryers and stuff on Poshmark, but you're not supposed to. If you want to sell more of those types of items, I would definitely recommend checking out apps and websites like Mercari or eBay or even Amazon if you have a lot of new with tags items. Poshmark is not the place for you though. Now, in terms of the clothing that you're selling on Poshmark, you can sell used or new clothing. And so a lot of people who start on Poshmark start because they have a lot of clothes laying around their house that they're not wearing anymore. And they know that they could donate it, but they also want to maybe make some money off of those clothes because they know that they paid a lot for those items. And they know that if they take it to places like Plato's or Buffalo Exchange, they may not get very much for those items. That's exactly how I found Poshmark. I had typically up until that point been taking items to my local Plato's Closet, but as I got older and stopped wearing as much fast fashion and I was wearing a lot more J. Crew and Banana Republic and career pieces for my job, they weren't taking as many of those items, and the items that they were taking, they were giving me like 80 cents for. And so I was like, there needs to be a place where I can sell my stuff to get more money. And so I think I literally Googled, where can I sell clothes for more money? And out popped Poshmark, and here I am more than a year later selling on Poshmark still. And I personally, as a part-time reseller, and I already explained how I only do this part-time, I have a full-time job, but as a part-time reseller on just the Poshmark app alone, I've made over $10,000 in 1 year. And since my 1 year anniversary, I've been doing more and more sales. So it's really exciting, it's really fun, and it's also a legitimate way to make money. What happens to a lot of people, however, is they sell through the clothes from their own house pretty quickly. So once they've sold through everything, they're wondering, what do I do now? And that's when you get these people who go out and they thrift and they find used clothing at places like Goodwill and Salvation Army, and then they bring those items home and give them new life by listing it on their Poshmark closet. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's go on to the pros and cons of Poshmark. Now, these pros and cons are my own. I'm sure that some of the things that I list as pros or some of the things that I list as cons, other people might view them as the opposite. I'm also sure that there are things missing from my list, but these are just the things that I came up with. So let's start actually with the pros. The first pro, I believe, to Poshmark is that you are in charge of how visible your items are. This is what I mean. On eBay or Mercari, when you list an item, you list it and you forget about it. You don't need to do anything else once you've listed it to help more people see it. You just list it and hope that a lot of people are seeing your items and hope that the right person sees it and that they will make an offer on your item and buy it. With Poshmark, there's no such thing as list it and you're done. In fact, that's like the opposite of what you should do on Poshmark. You've probably heard a lot of people on Poshmark talking about sharing their closet, and what they mean by that is instead of listing it and leaving their item alone, what they do is every so often, for me personally, it's daily or 2 times a day if I can, we'll go back into our Poshmark closet and there's a button that you can press underneath your listing and it says share. So you press the share button, and if it's not during a party, you only have the option to share it out to your followers, or there's like a list of all the people that are following you and you can share it to one of them individually if you want. But you can share to your followers or you can share to a party if there happens to be a party going on at that time. Why is it important to share? It's important to share because a lot of people shop on the Poshmark app by using the search bar. So if I am looking for, we're just gonna use this pair of Free People high-waisted flare pants, flare jeans. We're gonna use this example for the whole video, okay? So just get used to looking at these pants. But let's say I just listed these jeans. When I first list them, they are at the very top of the search list for when anyone searches Free People, or when anyone searches flare jeans, or when anyone searches high-waisted jeans, any of those keywords that I use in my listing, when someone searches for it, as soon as I list it, it's gonna be at the very top of the search feed. However, what happens when it's been a day or two since I've listed it? Everyone who has listed similar items, their items will go to the top of the feed and mine will drop down. Not only do your items go to the top once you list, but they go to the top when you share your item. That's why it's important that you keep sharing your items, because then it helps those items to keep being at the top of the search feed. The more often you share your items, the more often they'll be at the top of the feed. That's something that you can't do on eBay or Mercari. Now, some people view the fact that you have to share your closet as a con, but I like the fact that if I do keep sharing my closet, or that every time I share an item, it's gonna go to the top of the search feed, I like that because it seems like I have a little bit more control over how well people can see my items. The second pro that I'm gonna share with you is shipping. Poshmark has a wonderful relationship with USPS, and as a result, shipping is pretty awesome. Now, there are some parts of shipping that are not so great, so actually shipping is gonna show up on the con section as well later, but the reason why I love shipping through Poshmark is because there's a flat fee for shipping of, ooh, I don't know the exact number. I will put it here when I edit, but this is the amount that the buyer pays when they buy something off of Poshmark. Now, why is that a huge deal? It's a huge deal because when you sell things on eBay and Mercari, you need to know exactly how much your items weigh, because depending on how much it weighs, it will determine how much the buyer needs to pay for shipping, or how much you're gonna pay for shipping if you're offering free shipping. You also, with Mercari and with eBay, and especially eBay, you have all these different options as to how you ship and what kind of box you're gonna send it out in. There's regional, there's flat rate, there's all different ways to ship. Whereas with Poshmark, because of that relationship that they have with USPS, you can use any sort of shipping box or envelope or poly mailer as long as it's priority mail or flat rate. And that's awesome. And the best thing about it, in my opinion, is not only do they have that relationship with USPS so you can use any of those kinds of shipping supplies, you can go on the USPS website and have them send you those boxes and poly mailers for free. You don't even have to go to the post office to pick up those things. You can just get it delivered straight to your house. That's amazing. It's also really nice because this flat fee covers anything up to 5 pounds, which is amazing because if you try to mail something that's 5 pounds on eBay or on Mercari, you need to pay a lot more than this amount. And so your buyer is going to feel really good about buying those boots from you or buying those shoes from you, knowing that they weigh close to 5 pounds, but they don't have to pay more than this amount. Poshmark will also send you a priority mail label, so it's really easy to just print it out, whether you're printing it on a regular printer or through some sort of Dymo or Rollo, the other brand, I don't know what it is, but like those label printers. It's so easy, you just print it out, slap it on your box, and you're good to go. The third pro, in my opinion, is Poshmark's customer service. I know one complaint that a lot of people have about eBay, for example, is that eBay doesn't stand behind their sellers. They tend to side with the buyer, even if the buyer is trying to return an item for a pretty bogus claim. On Poshmark, there are incidents where that's happening, but for the most part, every time I've had a case opened up against me, I have felt really supported by Poshmark, especially when I'm in the right and it's obvious that I'm in the right. So for example, on Poshmark, they have a pretty strict policy in regards to people cannot return items just because it doesn't fit them right, especially if you as the buyer have provided measurements in your listing, which is why it's really important to list measurements in your listing. But anyway, if you do have the measurements listed in your listing and someone tries to say, well, this item doesn't fit me, so I want to return it, they can't. Poshmark will rule in your favor. Also, if things happen like the package gets lost or the buyer claims that they never got their package, Poshmark will typically refund the buyer, but they'll also still release your funds to you. So it's not like you have to eat the cost. Personally, I love Poshmark's customer service, but customer service is going to show up again in the cons section later in this video, and you'll see why. The next pro for Poshmark, in my opinion, is that it's much easier to list on Poshmark than it is on eBay or even, I think, Mercari. The biggest factor as to why I think it's easy is because you don't have to worry about how much things weigh necessarily. So there's not that element of having to weigh something before you list it. But also on eBay, for example, they're asking you for so much information about each item. Whereas on Poshmark, it's pretty simple. You can take up to 8 pictures, you have your listing, you have the description, and then they have a bunch of drop-down menus where they ask you a few different questions about the brand and the size and is it new with tags and things like that. Generally, I can knock out a listing in 2 to 3 minutes. So for that reason, ease of listing is my next pro. The next pro of Poshmark is their 20% commission cut. And the reason why I'm listing this as a pro is because you know exactly upfront how much you're gonna take home from your item. Whereas on eBay, there are eBay fees as well as PayPal fees. So there's a lot more math that goes into figuring out, well, how much profit am I actually making off of this item? Whereas with Poshmark, you just deduct 20% and that's what you take. Some people complain about the 20%, but I understand why they're taking that from us. It's because they're providing a platform on which we can list items that will be seen potentially by over 10 million potential buyers. Sure, I could start my own website if I wanted and try to sell items that way, but how am I going to get that kind of traffic to my website? That's what you're paying for when you list on Poshmark. You're paying for their advertising, you're paying for their customer service, you're paying for their app and their website. You're paying for all of these things that if you were to try to do it by yourself, it would cost a lot more and you'd have to spend a lot more time doing it. So 20% I'm okay with, and I also love the fact, like I said, that I know exactly how much goes in my pocket after every sale right away. The last pro that I'm going to share with you is that I think Poshmark is fun, and I think it's fun for a number of reasons. One, Poshmark is definitely known to be the most social of all of the selling apps. On Poshmark, they do a lot of things like parties that you can share to and that you can shop from. They have a lot of events through Poshmark like closet clear out and make a deal days. and they're always offering prizes and things like that for those different events. They also encourage you to communicate with other people that are on the app. People are always leaving each other kind comments on their About Me page or on their listings, saying things like, oh, this is so cute, I hope you are able to sell it well. There are things like host picks. I mean, there's just a lot of fun, active things happening on Poshmark. There's also an interesting thing that happens on Poshmark with other sellers. There's this term called PFF, which is Posh Friends Forever, Poshmark Friends Forever, and you just find people that you gel with, and a lot of times they will come to your closet and share your items, and you do the same for them. And there's this sense of camaraderie of, I'm gonna help you, you help me, and hopefully we both make more sales together. And that's really cool. You don't see that on eBay, you don't see that on Mercari, and for me personally, I really enjoy that aspect of Poshmark. All right, friends, let's get into the cons. My first con is time. Poshmark does eat up a lot of time, especially when you start factoring in things like sharing your closet, sharing other people's closets, following other people, all those things that you can do to be active on the app and things that Poshmark rewards you for, they take up a lot of time. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't like about Poshmark is they feel like it's kind of a time suck, and in some ways it really is, especially when you first get started if you're not careful, because you're just like, I have to do all the things. But learning how to prioritize and learning what things are actually the most beneficial in helping bring you more sales, once you start figuring that stuff out, it doesn't take up as much time as some people make it out to be, but it is definitely more time than eBay or Mercari, because like I said, on those kinds of sites, you're just listing your items and you're leaving them alone. The next con is that there aren't as many people on Poshmark as there are on sites like eBay or even Amazon, obviously. Amazon is taking over the world, but there just aren't as many people. So when it comes to certain types of items, like really vintage items or rare items, a lot of those types of things, if you can get more eyes on them, they probably sell faster. Whereas on Poshmark, you only have, I don't know what the official number is. I will look it up and I will put it here. There are this many people on the Poshmark app right now as we speak, although to be fair, not all of those people are active on the app. They just started closets at some point or they just started accounts at some point. But who knows if they're actually shopping or selling now. But with this many people, yeah, that's a lot of eyes, but it's not as much as eBay or Amazon. So that is definitely a con. The next con that I have is that although Poshmark's customer service is great, they don't have a call center. If you have an issue, you can't pick up your phone and call someone to talk to another human being and say, this is my problem, how can I fix it? eBay has a call center. Does Amazon? I don't know. I don't know if Mercari does either. I kind of doubt that they do. Poshmark does not. And that's definitely a flaw. It's definitely a con, because there have been times when I've been struggling with something, and if I could just pick up the phone and talk to someone, I would have been able to figure out the issue much quicker than I was able to at that time. So that is definitely a con. The next con is something that also showed up in my pros column, and that is the 20%. And I kind of talked about why a lot of people view that 20% cut as a con, especially if you compare it to a site like Mercari. Mercari is only taking 10% of your cut, but Mercari also doesn't have quite as many people on the app as Poshmark, and a lot of the people that are on Mercari are not there looking for used clothing. They're there looking for things like video games and other electronics and things of that nature. So Poshmark, the people that are on there really are there for the fashion and for clothes and that sort of thing, whereas on Mercari, they're there for all sorts of stuff. So even though they're taking less, you do have to deal with the fact that their shipping is much more and just a little bit more of a hassle than Poshmark. So yes, the 20%, it seems like a pretty big chunk of change that they're taking from you, especially when you're selling items that are much more expensive. But I personally, like I explained earlier, am okay with it because of all of the things that Poshmark is taking care of for you. Another con that also showed up in my pros section is shipping. Now, this fee for shipping is pretty great when you are purchasing something like boots and they are £5. You're really thankful at that point that you're only paying this amount for boots that weigh that much, knowing that you'd have to pay probably double or triple that if you were to have bought those same boots on eBay. However, to have to pay this amount for a pair of earrings or for a bra or a swimsuit bottom, that kind of hurts, especially when, because of sites like Amazon, we're so accustomed to free shipping. Having to pay this much to send something that you know doesn't even weigh an ounce, That kind of sucks. And it's harder for Poshmark sellers to move a lot of things like jewelry or really lightweight makeup and things of that nature because they have to charge this much to ship the item. So when you are a Poshmark buyer and you're trying to buy these $5 pair of earrings, but then you know that you have to pay more than that to get it shipped to you, it prevents a lot of people from actually making the purchase. So that can definitely be viewed as a con. The last pro to Poshmark, in my opinion, is that Poshmark buyers are a little bit more high maintenance than buyers on eBay or Mercari. And what I mean by that is Poshmark has a reputation for buyers sending out items that are packaged nicely. So for eBay, for example, if I were to sell my Free People jeans, I could literally just fold them up nicely and throw them in a poly mailer and send them on their merry way, and no one will think anything of it. But if I do that on Poshmark, I'll probably get dinged on my rating. I probably won't get 5 stars, and the reasoning for it will be packaging. People on Poshmark go all out. I know for myself personally, when I package up my items for Poshmark, I wrap them in tissue paper, I tie a ribbon around it, and I handwrite a note and put that on the inside of the ribbon, in between the ribbon and the tissue. I personally don't use fancy poly mailers that you can buy on sites like YouPackAndShip because I'm stingy like that, but there are a lot of people on Poshmark who are sending out items in really nice poly mailers, and they're creating business cards, and I mean, it gets really fancy. So I would definitely consider that a con as well. Although for me personally, I don't mind going the extra mile when it comes to packaging because I think it's kind of fun. I'm weird like that. But a lot of people are not about that life. So for them, it would be a con. All right, friends, that is all I have for you on this topic of, is Poshmark the right online marketplace for you? And if you think that it is, I'm really excited for you to go ahead and start your Poshmark closet. And if you feel like you want to sign up, if you look down below in the description section, there is a link that you can use. And if you use that link to sign up for Poshmark, you will get, I believe, a $5 or $10 credit. I want to say it's $10. And I will also get a $5 credit for referring you. I honestly have really enjoyed my time on Poshmark. I don't see myself stopping anytime soon because, like I said, it's a great way to earn some extra income for extra things in your life, or to just pay off some debt, or to just lay around in money. I don't know why you want to make more money than you do now, but it's a really good and fun way to do it. Once you get started, if you want more tips on how to be even more successful on Poshmark, please make sure that you check out my other videos, make sure you subscribe, and I'd love to hear if you have any other pros or cons to Poshmark. If you do, leave a comment. Thanks again, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!